Hello everyone! Today we're going to be learning how to graph on a coordinate plane. So our learning objectives for this lesson is that by the end of the lesson you can graph points on a coordinate plane to solve real world and mathematical problems, and then the standards that we're meeting are set below. So our problem that we're going to be working with today is Mrs. Johnson's 5th grade class recorded the temperature at noon each day for 5 days. They have questions about their data, but they need our help graphing the data on a coordinate plane before they can answer them. So our table below shows the days and then what the temperature was on each of those 5 days. So a coordinate plane is a two-dimensional grid system used to represent points in space. And to create our coordinate plane graph, we have to do 4 steps. So first we need to label our axes, then we need to plot our data, and then add our finishing touches, and then finally, after that's all done, we can use the graph to solve our problem. So to start with our axes, each axis will get its measurement that corresponds to its data. So the x-axis matches the data that does not change, and the y-axis matches the data that does change. Our graph will get an x-axis, which is horizontal, and then a y-axis, which is vertical. And then this is kind of what the coordinate grid will look like once we have our x and y-axis labeled. Then we need to plot our data. So for each piece of data, you're going to go to the matching points for each axis, and then find your way up and find your way across to figure out where those 2 points meet. Where they meet, you're going to put a small little dot, and that will show your data plot. And each x and y correspondent will get a data plot. And then you're going to add your finishing touches. So you're going to add labels to each of your x and y axes, and then you're going to add a title to your graph so that people know what data you're collecting. And now we're going to watch a short little video about how we're going to graph our problem that we had just talked about, and how our graph gets set up and adds labels and everything like that. Hello everyone, we're at the portion of our video where we're going to go over our problem that we had started. So our problem we started was Miss Johnson's 5th grade class recorded the temp at noon each day for 5 days in a classroom. So they want to make their data, which I have here, into a coordinate graph. It's going to be a little backwards, but that's okay. And they want to make this into a coordinate graph. So we're going to do that for them and go through the steps of making a coordinate graph. So this is their day category, and then this is their temperature category of their table that they made. And so this will be our x-axis. Since this data does not change, the day does not change. And then this will be our y-axis. Since each day the temperature is changing, it will be our y-axis because it changes. So now that we have our data points, I'm going to erase these, and I'm going to use the same colors that I had used in the table to make my axis, just to make it a little easier to see. So this, our x-axis, is our horizontal axis, so it will go down here. We'll label it as our x-axis. And then, with our blue marker, we will draw our vertical axis, which is our y-axis. Label it up here. Okay, so now we have our x and y-axis. And now we are going to put in our measurements for each category. So our x-axis is our days. So we just go day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're just going to, as our measurement for our x-axis, we're just going to go from 0 to 5. So we'll start over here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now our y-axis is a little bit trickier. It goes from 68 to 75. So since we can't just start at 68, we have to start at 0. We're going to, let's see, we're going to go up by 25. So we're going to start at 0. And just like how you would count maybe quarters, 25, 50, 75, and 100. Okay, so we go up by 25s each time. So 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100. But any way you want to put measurements on your graph, you could do whatever's easiest for you. So if you wanted to go up by tens, you could go from 10 all the way to 100. But you have to go past your highest data point. So our highest data point is 75 is the highest temperature on our y-axis. So we have to go past 75. That way we have room for our data to fit. So now that we have our x and y axes, we're going to label our data points. So I'm going to grab a different color, and we're going to start with our x-axis. I'm just going to draw our table up here. That way it's a little bit easier to see. Okay. So now that we have, this is our x, this is our y. Okay. We have our table up here. It makes it a little bit easier to see where we start. So we start with our x. We always start with our x-axis. We start on our first day. So we go down to where the x-axis is at 1, which is right down here. And then we go over to our y-axis, and we go to 68. So we have to go between 50 and 75. So it'll probably be somewhere around here. Okay? And we follow that line, and we follow this line all the way up until these two lines intersect each other. Okay? Once they intersect each other, that's where we know where our data point will be. So we draw a dot right here to represent that that's where our data is at. Then we move on to our second day number 2. And day number 2 started at 70, so it'll be just a little bit above 68, probably right here. And so we'll go over, and then we'll go over, and we'll go up from day number 2, and over from 70 until they intersect each other. And we draw our line, okay? And we keep doing that for all of our data points. So each data point has an x coordinate and a y coordinate. So if you were to point this dot out, it would be at 1 and 68. So you would write it like this. Okay, and you should, since you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables, like columns on your table of x and y, you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data points. And lastly, after we have done all of our data points, I'm just going to do the rest of them really quickly. So, okay, it looks a little something like that, probably a little bit straighter. After we put down all of our data points, we are going to give everything a name. So once we give everything a name, that way if someone were to look at our graph who hadn't heard the problem, they would know what we're talking about. So our x-axis counts the number of days that Mrs. Johnson's class went through, so we're going to label it days. Okay, label it what it is. So the y-axis is the temperature. So we're going to label it temp or temperature if you have room. And then we're going to put just this little circle there. That means it's in degrees. So that way people who are looking at it know that we're talking about a temperature in degrees. Then we have to give our graph a label or a title. So the title would be temperature, I'm going to write temp, based on days. Okay, so the days don't change, the temperature changes. So the temperature changes based on the days. Okay, so now that our graph is all finished, we have title, 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 our x-axis that's labeled, our y-axis that's labeled, and our points. Your graph is complete. And we'll do more sample graph problems the more you want.